host, Brendon Booth. It's a great Friday. It's in the triple digits here, and I'm sweating. Welcome again. This is an 8-part series previewing each team by division in alphabetical order. Today is the NFC North because the alphabet. I still have some player news. So go ahead and like the show, share it around, leave some comments. Follow me on Twitter at BigBonedFFB. Follow Player Profiler News on Twitter at profiler_NFL. Find our archive at playerprofiler.com/news. Go to Player Profiler and get the new world famous draft kit. Pop some corn, crack a sparkly beverage, settle in. Let's get to the news. All right, our top story today is training camps have opened. Our long national nightmare is over. There haven't been enough practices to fully report on the depth charts. Xavier Worthy caught a pass or whatever. But the pups have been barking, so I've got some pup dates for you. There's so many pup designations. I'll just hammer you with a list of names rather than go through all of them and tell the stories. But we do have player news. You may or may not have heard Jordan Addison, Minnesota Vikings wide receiver, was arrested on suspicion of driving under the influence. He's had legal issues involving a motor vehicle in 2 consecutive off seasons. Especially is a bad time, especially given the recent DUI death of cornerback Kyrie Jackson, their draft pick out of Oregon. We got to see what happens. There's a couple of different pending DUI suspensions looming in the NFL. Rashee Rice, Jordan Addison. The wide receiver taken out of commission because of a DUI has hit me personally too, being a Raiders fan. Henry Ruggs unfortunately killed a woman and her dog and essentially ruined his life. I'm a former substance abuse counselor, and I understand the physiology of alcohol. And essentially what happens is alcohol turns your brain into that of a teenager, somebody who can't process logically, look at consequences, has no fear, all those things. And that leads to drunk driving. If you can, take the keys from somebody. If you know that they've had too much to drink and they have been driving, do everything that we can as a community to try and prevent this from happening, because nobody should be dying because people are stunted because of alcohol. All right. Brandon Ayuk is trying to force a trade out of San Francisco. He has officially requested the trade from the 49ers. He's been looking to get paid on par with the top receivers. More on that later. And wants to be around $30 million a year. He finished the 2023 season with 17.9 yards per reception. That was an NFL high. According to Next Gen Stats, that takes into account the ability to get open, catch the ball, and gain yards after catch. He finished number 1 overall. The volume could be higher, but there's a lot of mouths to feed in that 49ers offense. So basically, he's like, you guys, give me the bag. And they've been trying. They haven't been able to come to an agreement. So he's like, fine, trade me. So we'll see how that plays out. It's likely that the 49ers are going to capitulate and give him the bag that he so rightly deserves. But we can always hope that he lands in Washington. All right. The state of Louisiana has officially dropped charges against Kayshon Boutte, New England Patriots wide receiver. He was arrested in January over allegations of illegal sports betting while he was at LSU. But the state dropped the charges, so he's good to go. He was kind of a disappointment. Had some steam just because of the SEC network and ESPN and LSU's station in the college football landscape. So it was like, hey, LSU wide receiver, let's take a chance. And he didn't really show up. Not that his quarterback play was great, but I think a little bit more was expected out of Boutte than what they got. All right, so let's hear from Fearless Leader, and on the other side, we will get to the pup dates.
Hey, it's the Podfather. I have great news. The draft kit is live. It is world famous. Why? Because it is the best resource for winning fantasy football championships that exists. There are rankings and cheat sheets for every format you can imagine. We have projections both at the team level and the player level. And wherever you are, you can click on a player, open them up, and see in-depth written analysis about what to expect in fantasy football from that player this year. And then you can click on the team and you can get even more in-depth analysis, all the drivers of fantasy production, both in a positive and negative direction for that team, including a signature trend. And the graphics are incredible. So these team insights, they give you the team level projections, the vacated targets, the vacated ARs. And we added a bunch of features. I mean, individual cheat sheets for Theo and Billy and Dario. So you could take your favorite analyst and download their personal draft cheat sheet. And then in the commissioners section, Memphis Young lays out everything you need to know to manage a league. The best minds in the industry contributing analysis. It's certainly not the most inexpensive draft kit on the market, but it is the best. Playerprofiler.com/draft kit. Playerprofiler.com/draft kit. Go get it.
Welcome back. Yeah, go get the draft kit. A lot of people put a lot of hard work into that. And if you want to know what my take is on Elijah Moore this season, you're gonna need the draft kit. All right, so we'll start with on to the pup dates. We'll start with the defending champions, the Kansas City Chiefs. Now, they may have won the Super Bowl, but on Christmas Day last year, the Raiders scared them so much that they were like, we got to get ahead of the game. They were one of the first teams to start their camps. So with the camp starting, the teams designate who is unable to perform. The Chiefs put Jalen Watson, Charles Omenihu, Derek Noddy, and Joe Tooney on the pup list. Packers, Alex McGuff, Tucker Kraft, Zach Tom, Donovan Jennings. The Giants, rookie tight end Theo Johnson, but not Daniel Jones, because that's what the Giants need is more tight end injuries. The Ravens, Keaton Mitchell, because that's what the Ravens need is more injured running backs. Down to Miami, edge rushers Bradley Chubb and Jalen Phillips were placed on the active but physically unable to perform list due to lingering injuries from last season. Taj Washington, rookie out of USC, that opens up a spot for Malik Washington to take some of the return duties and maybe keeps Braxton Berrios in the building for a little bit longer. The Saints, Ryan Ramczyk will miss the season. He has been placed on the inactive, physically unable to perform list. So basically, they push his contract a year forward. They don't have to deal with him. He can take his time in rehab, all that stuff. Come back next year. But if you've got Saints shares in fantasy, you might want to devalue Derek Carr just a little bit. Because he's probably going to get smacked around. They lost a couple players, and we'll get to that when we talk about the NFC South. The Saints also placed tight end Juwan Johnson, defensive end Tano Passignon, Nefi Sewell, and Chase Young on the active but physically unable to perform list. Chris Olave was placed on the non-football injury list. That's a different list. He could return anytime soon. And Bub Means, rookie Saints wide receiver, was on the non-football injury list, but they took him off of it. Panthers, Jonathan Brooks, placed on the NFI list. Linebacker DJ Wonham, tackle Yosh Neiman, linebacker Amari Barno, wide receiver Jalen Coker won't be able to practice when camp opens next week unless they come off the list. The full Seahawks pup list is Abraham Lucas, Jerome Baker, Tyrell Dodson, Lance Boykin, Jarek Reed II, Drake Thomas, Cameron Young. The Jets, Mike Williams, Nick Bodden, defensive tackle Leonard Taylor on the physically unable to perform list. They also placed quarterback Jordan Travis and wide receiver Tyler Harrell on the non-football injury list. So that's the pup dates. No depth chart updates this week, but next week there will be more pup dates as more teams start their training camps. And who knows, we might have some beat writers out there going, Xavier Worthy looks like he's going to be the Chiefs wide receiver 2 behind Hollywood Brown, and not Rishi Rice, whatever. Okay, so we are going to swing to the NFC North preview. Now, remember, I'm doing the teams alphabetically because if I did them by where they were going to finish, that would be unfair to the Bears. But that's unfair to the Vikings. Then don't name your team with a V. Be the Aardvarks or something. Also, my first and last name start with B, and my nickname starts with B, so I like that better. So I'm starting with the Bears. And if you don't like it, you can wait until I get to your team. Now, Chicago last season, they had a record of 7-10. They were third in the NFC North. Head coach Matt Eberflus saw the writing on the wall and allowed Luke Getsy to flee, and got rid of the defensive coordinator too. So new coordinators in Chicago. They were 18th of 32 teams in scoring points, 21.2 points per game, which isn't, I mean, it's not terrible. It's very middle of the pack. And that was with a fairly inefficient quarterback in Justin Fields, and also bringing in Colorado School of Mines legend Badgett into the game, or into play during the season. They allowed 379 points. That's 22.3 points per game. That's a bad differential, and that was bad enough to be 20th out of 32 teams. Chicago Bears have a legacy of great defenses, and that's not going to cut it, being in the bottom third of the league. I guess that's a third. It's 11. Bottom third of the league. Okay. They had an expected win and loss total of 8 and 9 based on their point differential. So they actually lost one more game than they should have, due to bad luck, or not bad luck, just luck in general. And I've explained on the show, if you haven't watched already, when I say luck in terms of probability based on the point differential, it just means that there was some unforeseen circumstance besides points allowed and points for that led to the loss. We don't know what that is, so we call it luck. Subtractions to the roster and coaching staff. Justin Fields, Deontay Foreman, Luke Getsy, Darnell Mooney, Eddie Jackson, and Cody Whitehair aren't around for Chicago to kick around anymore. They added Shane Waldron, Eric Washington, University of California Golden Bears legend Keenan Allen, Raiders legend DeAndre Carter. I mean, that was 1 year kick return, so that's cool. Mercedes Lewis, tight end. He's the father time at this point. He won't go away, and he signed a 1-year contract with Chicago. Shane Waldron, he likes tight ends. Gerald Everett, DeAndre Swift came over. Ryan Bates to play interior offensive line. Tremaine Edmonds, Buffalo stud at linebacker, and Kevin Byard, longtime safety, great from Tennessee and Philadelphia. In the draft, everybody knew this. They drafted USC quarterback Caleb Williams, the consensus best player available in the draft, the one that everybody targeted. Essentially, Caleb Williams has as much hype as any quarterback has since Andrew Luck, maybe. Everybody thinks that he's a can't-miss prospect, but we'll talk a little bit more about that in a little bit. Oh, no, I forgot my slides. Okay, well, here you go. This was the intro to the Bears. Not having a producer and also forgetting are two different things. Okay, so here was the recap of the season that I was supposed to do, and then here were the subtractions, and then this was for the additions, and then so that includes the draft. So I will finish that. Okay, so among the 2024 additions, Caleb Williams, and then in the first round they had the 9th pick, so they went and they got Washington wide receiver Rome Odunze. affectionately nicknamed Romo Doomsday by friend of player profiler Jax Falcone, player profiler contributor and partner of mine over Undroppables. Odunze is he's a badass, and he's probably going to have a pretty good year opposite DJ Moore and Keenan Allen. Offensive tackle Kieran Amedeji out of Yale. So smart guy. Punter Torrey Taylor, Iowa. Controversial pick. Everybody was kind of going, Eberflus, what's your deal? Drafting a punter. And then edge Austin Booker out of Kansas. Kind of a light draft, and coming from third place in the division, they're really, really banking on Romo Doomsday and Caleb Williams to get it done. They put some offensive pieces in place, and Shane Waldron knows what he's doing coming over from Seattle. So it remains to be seen. However, we're talking rookie quarterback here. And when has a rookie quarterback ever led to a much better year? I'll tell you, last year. So you see the little icon up in the screen. It says, nope. Bears aren't going to do it this year. It's not going to happen. And if you're a Bears fan, I'm sorry. It's not hate. It's just analysis. They haven't done enough, and it's going to take some time. Caleb Williams doesn't know the speed of the NFL at this point, and it's going to be much different than USC. And we did see him kind of do some great things in improvisation, and also some not so great things under pressure. So he is a can't miss prospect as they come, but he's going to take some time to get acclimated. All right, moving on to, can you feel the roar? Oh, wait, no, that's the Sacramento Kings. Light the beam. The Detroit Lions. So 2023, they were good. They finished 12-5 first in the NFC North. They were fifth out of 32 teams with 27.1 points per game. They only allowed 23.2 points per game, 23rd out of 32. So somehow they outplayed their record, because their point differential, they were expected to go 10-7. The defense struggled a little bit. 23rd out of 32, that's worse than the Bears, and yet somehow they still managed to win 12 games. They made it to the playoffs. They won in the wild card round, 24-23, just sneaking one out over the Los Angeles Rams. They then went on to beat the Bake Show in Tampa, 31-23. And then they ran into the juggernaut San Francisco 49ers in the conference championship and lost a winnable game, 34-31. So going into the offseason, boom, I got the button right. Woo! Hooray for me. They lost offensive court. No, that was the Browns. Do better. They didn't make a whole lot of moves. They did add Kevin Zeitler, who's a really, really good offensive lineman from Baltimore. Defensive lineman DJ Reader, who in 2022, for the 2023 season, in 2023, I wanted him to somehow make it to the Raiders. They signed Raiders legend, cornerback, Amick Robertson. Raider Nation, pour one out. Amick Robertson is an absolute dog. He's a stud. He's a smaller fellow, plays slot corner, and is really, really good in open field tackles and playing against the run. He's a little bit short, so there are a lot of passes that kind of go over his head, and he's too short to get to. But other than those things, like Amick Robertson plays his butt off. And they added outside linebacker Marcus Davenport. Carlton Davis, cornerback, comes over in a trade from the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. So they did try and address the defense a little bit. They saw the writing on the wall. They knew what they had with their offense. and they tried to address the defense. And you could see that in the first 2 rounds of the draft. They drafted cornerback Terrion Arnold out of Alabama, very highly touted recruit, and Ennis Rakestraw out of Missouri. Rakestraw was kind of like, he was one of those candidates that we were trying to mock draft to whatever teams, but couldn't really figure out where he was going to fit. And he ultimately goes to Detroit. So if you think about a couple of different drafts, Detroit Lions and the Philadelphia Eagles, both of them spent lots of draft capital to address their pass defense, which in both cases is going to be a good thing. 4th round, they took tackle Giovanni Manu out of the University of British Columbia, Canadian, shout out FF Canuck 99, Mike Greinberg. Safety Sione Vaki out of Utah. He's an interesting dude. Played running back, played safety, played all over the field, and I mean, he's kind of a jack of all trades. He can do kick returns. I think they have him slated to do that. And then Mikai Wingo, defensive lineman out of LSU, and guard Christian Mahogany out of Boston College. Crap. That was those were the additions and the draft. And outlook, more of the same from Detroit. They're going to be touted as possible Super Bowl contenders. And, I'll tell you a thing about me. I share a hometown birth with one Mr. Jared Goff. We were both born in Novato, California, he being the second best football player ever born in Novato, California. It's my personal little joke I like to tell. Shout out, hashtag Novato boys. And I'm a Cal fan, so I've been on the Jared Goff hype train from his first game as a freshman when he started destroying Aaron Rodgers' Cal records. He's a good quarterback, you guys. He certainly is in the range of 4,500 yards and 30 touchdowns as long as he can stay healthy. The knock against him really at this point is that he's about as mobile as, what did I see on today? A dump truck trying to make a U-turn. So he's a pocket passer. He's going to stand there. He's going to take his hits, but he's also going to get rid of the ball. And he's got 2 of the best in the business to do it, to get the 3 of the best in the business to get the ball to. Amon-Ra St. Brown, wide receiver, Sam Laporta at tight end, and Jahmyr Gibbs at running back. All 3 of them are very, very capable pass catchers. So the Lions offense isn't going anywhere. They're going to remain in the top of the league. Now the defense is another story, and hopefully they made enough changes and are trying to hammer that defense enough that they're going to continue to play at the level that they've been playing and push it one game farther. I mean, it must be really frustrating to be at the cusp of going to the Super Bowl and lose by less than a touchdown. I wouldn't know as a Raiders fan. It's been over 20 years. It's so sad. All right. So as you can see, they are fire, and Taylor's taking a second look there. And on to the Green Bay Packers, as Chris Berman would say, the frozen tundra of Green Bay. All right. Last year, they finished with a record of 9-8. They were second in the North Division. They scored 22.5 points per game, 383 total for 12th out of 32 teams. Their defense was a little better at 350 points allowed, 20.6 points per game. They were 10th out of 32 teams. Their expected win-loss total was 9.4 over 7.6, which means that they actually they lost half a 0.4 of a game due to luck. Made the playoffs. They beat the Dallas Cowboys in the wild card round 48-32. It was absolutely Jordan Love's coming out party, and really kind of portends things to come for this team. They're one of the youngest teams, if not the youngest team in the NFL. Everybody in that offense is super young. Jordan Love, it was his first year as a starter. Jaden Reed was a rookie. Dontavian Wicks was a rookie. Christian Watson was second or third year. Romeo Dubs was a second or third year, same year as Christian Watson. Luke Musgrave was a rookie. Just like young players and talent all over the place. They made it to the divisional round against the 49ers. And again, the 49ers are a buzzsaw. They lost 24-21, but expect more of the same from the Packers this year. They lost Aaron Jones, David Bakhtiari. Oh, wait, that was the 2023 recap. I'm going to get the hang of this at some point. I promise you. Subtractions. They lost Aaron Jones, David Bakhtiari, and Devondre Campbell. Bakhtiari and Devondre Campbell, losing them is interesting because A, they were good, and B, they were also old. Aaron Jones, I guess you can say the same thing. So it's kind of a matter of like kind of sloughing the older players, maybe going for a little bit more youth in there. So they added in free agency Josh Jacobs and Xavier McKinney. Josh Jacobs isn't as old as you think. He has been around for a while. He did deal with injuries last year, missed the last 4 games of the season, and Xavier McKinney is a little bit long in the tooth as well, but they should be good additions. In the draft, they had a lot of draft picks. Tackle Jordan Morgan out of Arizona. The guy is a human beast. He's just enormous. Linebacker Edrin Cooper out of Texas A&M. Being a linebacker guy, some people thought that he was the best linebacker in the entire draft. So we'll have to see. Javon Bullard, safety out of Georgia, national champion. Running back Marshawn Lloyd out of USC. He's a dual threat, perfect running back for the Packers. He is excellent in routes, and he's big enough to run as a between the tackles guy. Linebacker Tyron Hopper from Missouri. Safety Evan Williams out of Oregon. It's one of my favorite names in all of football. Shout out Evan Williams. Offensive tackle Jacob Monk out of Duke. Safety Keton Oladapo out of Oregon State. Offensive tackle Travis Glover out of Georgia State. Michael Pratt, quarterback out of Tulane. They got him as a 7th rounder, and that's about where he was slated to go, but he's got some sneaky upside. You got a huge arm, and similar to Jordan Love, although without the draft capital, if you give Michael Pratt a few years and Jordan Love moves on somewhere else, Michael Pratt could ultimately be a starting quarterback in the NFL. And then finally, to round it out, that's a lot of draft picks, you guys. Kalen King, cornerback out of Penn State. Dang it, that was the draft. Okay, 2024 outlook. You can see in the little corner of the graphic there. Arrested Development fans know that there's always money in the banana stand, and B, that's maybe. The Green Bay Packers are a huge maybe this year. We'll see what happens. You want their offense to take a step forward. We'll see how they deal with the loss of Campbell as a defensive captain and Bakhtiari as a legacy Packer. But we shall move it along to the Minnesota Vikings. Again, change your name to the Aardvarks if you want to go first next time. As you can see, it's a terrible graphic. I forgot to delete one of the... Anyway, that went too fast. Isn't this fun, you guys? I'm glad you're on this ride with me. Okay, 2023 recap. The Vikings, they were 7-10, 3rd in the division, I guess tied with Chicago. 344 points scored. That's not getting it done. It's about 20.2 points a game, good for 22nd out of 32. I'm not great at math, but that is definitely bottom third of the league. And their defense allowed 21.3 points per game, 13th out of 32, so that's a little bit better. And with a squad that boasts TJ Hawkinson, Jordan Addison, Justin Jefferson, and at the time last year, Alexander Madison and Ty Chandler, and you would have, and Kirk Cousins at quarterback, you would have expected a little bit more than that, but their offense just kind of stunk. Their expected win-loss total based on their point differential was 8 and 9. So they did lose an extra game due to unforeseen circumstances. Alexander Madison is now a Las Vegas Raider. Okay, wait. Alexander Madison is now a Los Angeles cut. Take two. Alexander Madison is now a Las Vegas Raider. And they added Aaron Jones. Or they lost, sorry. They added Aaron Jones. They added Robert Tunyon. Big Bob came over from Chicago. They signed Raiders legend Jihad Ward, defensive lineman. They agreed to terms with linebacker Camus Grugier-Hill. They agreed to terms with cornerback Shaq Griffin. They signed defensive lineman Jonah Williams. They agreed to terms with Dan Feeney, so he's going to bolster that offensive line. They agreed to terms with Raiders legend Jerry Tillery and with wide receiver Trent Sherfield. They agreed to terms with quarterback Sam Darnold, linebacker Blake Cashman, outside linebacker Jonathan Grenard, and outside linebacker Andrew Van Ginkel, who comes over from Miami. And if you watched Hard Knocks Miami last year, Van Ginkel is an absolute stud. They also agreed to terms with defensive lineman Jonathan Bullard, and they signed Aaron Jones. Next slide. Boom. I nailed it. I'm so good now. In the draft, they traded up to draft Michigan national champion quarterback J.J. McCarthy. Some pick. They also brought in Sam Darnold, so there's going to be kind of a training camp quarterback controversy. Kevin O'Connell has come out and said that J.J. McCarthy is not ready to start, period. He was a junior draftee, so he was, you want to see guys at a young age, and in this post-COVID time, that's not happening quite as often as with elite prospects, but J.J. McCarthy kind of fits that bill. During his early years at Michigan, he was a kind of a change of pace quarterback. He'd come in and run RPO and take running plays. So he does have that mobility that you want. He also has an absolute cannon for an arm. At the combine, he threw the second hardest ball behind the Tennessee Volunteers quarterback. So JJ McCarthy, one of the things about him is that he's very smart. He's got a great arm, and he just has there's the knock against him is that he didn't have a whole lot of reps. He was in Jim Harbaugh's offense at Michigan, but I mean, the kid won a national championship, and not to say that Stetson Bennett is on the same level as JJ McCarthy, but JJ McCarthy is a good quarterback, and he should have a good long career. And I think the Vikings are doing the right thing by not pushing him to start too early. Get Sam Darnold in there. Sam Darnold is a total candidate for the bounce back 5th year, 6th year guy, the Baker Mayfield of this year kind of thing. So let McCarthy sit for a little while. Dallas Turner, edge from Alabama, absolute stud. Kyrie Jackson, he was a cornerback out of Oregon who in the last couple weeks was killed in a nasty DUI crash that I alluded to at the top of the show. It's a huge loss for the Vikings. Tackle Walter Rouse out of Oklahoma, kicker Will Reichert out of Alabama, and center Michael Juergens out of Wake Forest. Levi Drake Rodriguez out of Texas A&M Commerce. That's what happens when you read it. Essentially, they had a really, really busy offseason, including signing Justin Jefferson to a huge extension, making him the most the highest paid wide receiver in the NFL, which, I mean, he should be. Jordan Addison got the DUI, so he's likely going to start the season suspended. They made a lot of moves in free agency and everything. They're trying to get everything back. But if you see the magic 8 ball on the graphic there, it says don't bet on it. I don't think the Vikings did enough to make a big jump and make it to the playoffs in the 2024 season. So, to sum everything up, the biggest riser by wins probably going to be Minnesota. They were 8-9. 7-10. So likely the biggest change is going to come there. They might win 8 or 9 games. They might even get to 10. That's going to be the biggest rise. The biggest faller by wins also could be Minnesota. With TJ Hawkinson beginning the year injured and Jordan Addison likely being suspended, and Sam Darnold being their choice at quarterback. They've got an aging Aaron Jones to tote the rock, and Ty Chandler, who's unproven as the go-to bell cow guy. So Minnesota's kind of up in the air. They're one of those teams that, like, it could go one of either two ways. The problem is you're starting from a baseline of 7-10 last year. So even if they are the biggest riser in wins in the division, it's likely not going to be enough to sneak into the playoffs. And if they just have a debacle of a season with, Sam Darnold and trying to get JJ McCarthy acclimated, then they could really, like, kind of fall off the cliff, as it were, in this division. So I think Detroit wins the division going away. I think the Green Bay Packers put up a fight with some push from their young stars, and this year goes pretty much the same way last year went. And again, there's a possibility that those Detroit Lions can make it to the Super Bowl. So that is our show. Join me next week as I go over the AFC South, because that's what comes next in the alphabet. And make sure that you're subscribed and you hit the bell so you'll know when the new episode of Dynasty Stock Market with Biggs and Beery drops. That's my Dynasty show that I have on this channel with Emerson Beery. We will be live on Wednesdays, at least for the time being, maybe until the season starts or somebody's schedule changes or something like that. So like the show, share it around, leave some comments. Tell me how I'm doing. Give me some feedback. Tell me I'm an idiot. Tell me that I'm just a Vikings hater, or I'm just a Bears hater, and I'm too high on the Lions, or whatever. Follow Player Profiler News on Twitter at profiler_NFL. Find our entire archive at playerprofiler.com/news. Go to Player Profiler and get that world famous draft kit. Again, a lot of people put in a lot of hard work to write up those player profiles, and I mean, that's, it's in the name, right? It's all about the player profile. And that's about it. I will see you guys next week, Friday, 4 p.m. Pacific, 7 o'clock on the East Coast. And let's have Mr. Kelly take us out. Thank you, guys.
From the Podfather to you, I deeply appreciate you tuning in. And many ask, what can I do? What can I do to help support the hosts, the research they do, the production costs? Go to playerprofiler.com, Dynasty Deluxe, World Famous Draft Kit, Rankings, DFS Dominator, and of course, data analysis. Subscribe to any one of those, and you support all of us and take Player Profiler to the moon.